Stocks continue to rally on Wall Street. The Nasdaq registers its 7th straight day of gains as optimism sustains after the Fed kept interest rates unchanged last week. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific trade with losses despite a positive handover from Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a slightly lower start for the Indian market. Bajaj Finance launches a QIP at an indicator floor price of 7,250 rupees a share, a discount of 4% to its current market price, with sources suggesting a fundraise to the tune of 8,000 crore rupees. Watch for earnings from IRCTC, Power Grid and Apollo Tyres today. The government will implement the odd-even scheme for a week in Delhi from next Monday as air quality remains in the hazardous category. Schools have been directed to suspend physical classes till November 10th, except for board years. Mumbai also gasps for cleaner air. Bombay High Court imposes a comprehensive ban on the transportation of construction debris to and from construction sites. And polling season kicks off. All 40 seats in Mizoram go to polls in a multi-cornered contest. Polling also begins in 20 out of 90 seats in Chhattisgarh. These include the districts of Bastar and Rajnandgaon. Good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast. I'm Pavitra. Those are the top headlines as we get into this brand new Tuesday. There's a lot for us to talk about. The handover from the US has been positive, but we are seeing some cuts across Asia right now. These are also, markets which have rallied a lot, so nothing to be too worried about. But you do have the Nikkei, which has seen losses intensify ever since the open. So it's currently down around 270 points on the Japanese index. Hong Kong is down around 80 points. Taiwan was actually the only market which was holding up in the green up until maybe 2-3 minutes ago. And right now, it's absolutely at the flat line. So there's been a bit of a pullback there as well. The other markets which are seeing cuts, so you have Kospi, which is down around 50 points as well. And across the board, I think that leaves us with all Asian markets in the red right now. The losses which are meaningful are perhaps only in Hang Seng, Nikkei and the Korean markets. But the Nikkei market, like I was mentioning, this is also a market which has rallied almost 6%, right, in 5 days. So perhaps a 260-point pullback is not anything to be too alarmed by. The key data that we're looking at from the Asian region is that the Chinese trade data is going to be out later today. So that is important to track. And that's what's happening across Asia. Let's also pull up the GIFT Nifty for you now. And you can see that it is indicating a bit of a soft start for our own markets. So maybe around 20 points lower is where we could see our own markets open. But this is after the 180-point kind of rally that we did get yesterday. Let's also talk about the US because, like I mentioned, Wall Street ended higher yet again, and we only built on the gains that we'd seen last week. So the Dow was up around 34 points. The S&P 500 gained around 0.2%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq was up 0.3%. For the Nasdaq, this has actually been the longest winning streak since January. So 7 straight days of gains. We have CNBC's Pippa Stevens, who's here to get us a wrap of all of that action from Wall Street.
U.S. markets were little changed Monday as Wall Street couldn't keep the momentum from last week's rally. The Dow added 35 points, the S&P was 8 points higher, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq up 41 points. Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser is implementing a sweeping corporate overhaul at the global bank. Known internally as Project Bora Bora, managers and consultants that are working on the reorganization efforts have discussed job cuts of at least 10% in several major businesses, with executives expected to see cuts beyond 10%. The talks are early and numbers could shift in the coming weeks. Taylor Swift has broke her own record. The re-recording of 1989 Taylor's version has now surpassed the original album's first week sales in 2014. The album is also the top-selling record in America for 2023 in just under 1 week, and it has sold over 3.5 million units globally. Swift is the first artist ever to earn 6 #1 album debuts with over 1 million units sold. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
All right. Thanks a lot for getting us all of that action from the U.S. markets. But let's also bring you some opinion. This comes in from Lael Brena, the director of U.S. National Economic Council, as well as Jeremy Siegel of the Wharton School, talking about the U.S. economy, inflation trends, and what the Fed's next move could look like.
We have been growing 3% over the past year. We've had unemployment down below 4% for 21 months in a row. Real incomes are growing. Wealth, this is remarkable, wealth is up 37% for the median household since before the pandemic. And we're growing faster and have lower inflation than any other advanced economy in the world. So the statistics, I think, are very strong.
I think Jay Powell has to be on high alert because we did get some weak data, certainly on the ISM jobless claims and certainly on Friday. Listen, let's be frank. The Fed cannot screw up the way it did on inflation by waiting a year too late. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get a recession or anything like that, but he's got to be very alert to slow down. And if the data continues weak, he really does have to consider lowering rates next year, even though inflation is going to be sticky.
All right, that is some important opinion coming in. By the way, a whole host of the Fed members, Fed officials are due to speak today. So that will be an important cue to track as well for the global markets. But that's everything that we're looking at from the global picture. Let's talk about how all of this really impacts our own market and the trade setup for the day. We have Ekta, Mangalam and Surbhi all joining us now to take us through exactly that. Guys, a very good morning to all of you. Ekta, let me come to you first. We definitely had a strong Monday. How's it looking this morning?
Thanks for that. Well, yes, definitely the markets are in festive mood. The markets ended higher for the third straight day and the Nifty is at a 2-week high. FIIs, however, net sold around 549 odd crores. DIIs net bought around 595 odd crores. So the institutional activity was pretty much flat. But the global cues supported sentiment yesterday. Earnings, hopes on a festive demand being stronger. All of these factors did bode well for us. Now, in terms of the overnight cues, you mentioned that the US markets were strong. Nasdaq gained for the 7th straight day. Asia is mixed as of now. Oil is still hovering around $84, $85 per barrel. This is because Saudi Arabia and Russia are sticking to their supply cuts. GIFT Nifty indicating a lower start as of now. But what really matters is stock-specific action for us as well. So while the global cues, the US markets are supportive, we will have a lot of focus on stock-specific action, considering that we have a lot of numbers to react to, such as Nykaa, Gland Pharma, just to name a few, and Bajaj Finance with its QIP. Earnings today, Alchem, Apollo Tyres, Cummins India, IRCTC, Power Grid, just to name a few. And like you mentioned, there will be a lot of focus with regards to what the Fed speakers as well as the FOMC chairman has to say over the week.
All right, Ekta, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those cues. Like Ekta was pointing out, it could be a lot about the stock-specific action today. So Surbhi is here to take us through all of that action now. Surbhi.
Good morning. So the first one is Bajaj Finance. Now sources say that the company is going to launch the QIP to raise 8,800 crores and the indicated floor price is going to be 70 to 50, a 4.1% discount to yesterday's closing price. Some earnings reactions now. HPCL, the revenues were below our poll, came in at 95,701 crores. EBITDA and margins above our poll, margins at 8.6% versus a poll of 5.2%. Nykaa, the company saw a good revenue growth of 22%, margins at 5.4%. versus 5%. Honeywell Automation revenues up 39%, EBITDA up 8% and margins at 12.5% versus 16% same time last year. NHPC, it was a muted quarter, revenue down 12%, EBITDA down nearly 20% and margins at 60% versus 66%. RR Cabel, the revenues were up 18%, EBITDA was up 88%, margins came in at 7.5% versus 4.7%. And lastly, Radico Khaitan, again a strong set of numbers, revenue up nearly 22%, gross profit margins at 44% and EBITDA up nearly 35%.
Okay, Surbhi, thanks a lot for taking us through that entire list of stocks. By the way, Honasa Consumer Mamaearth list today, so that will be important to track and, huge interest over there as well. But Mangalam is here with us now to take us through cues from the futures and options space. Mangalam, how's it looking?
Well, it was a good day of trade yesterday. No two ways about that. The Nifty did well. The Nifty Bank in the second half of trade pulled back, and as a result of which the market moved higher. In fact, if you just take a look at, the way the Nifty moved for the most part of the day, and then the HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank was an underperformer, but in the second half of trade, HDFC Bank came higher as well, and that resulted in the Nifty moving above that 19,411 mark. But right now, as we speak, the Nifty is absolutely at the 20-day moving average of 19,411.7. So, as close as it gets to that itself. And the SGX Nifty, or rather the GIFT Nifty, is indicating a cut of almost 20 points at the open. My sense is that this dip is likely to be bought, mainly because there is a big short covering boost that we're seeing in our markets. The FIIs, they bought around 1,258 crores in index futures. covered around 11,500 shorts and added 4,000 longs as well. So a net addition of almost 15,000 longs out there. And if you just take a look at the way the FII shorts have been dwindling or reducing, from 85% just a few trading sessions ago, it's now come down to around 80%. And the net short contracts, which were at 1.75 lakh just a couple of trading sessions ago, is now down to 1.47 lakh as well. But that's not to say that longs have reigned supreme. 80% of the positions are still on the short side. So any further up move will lead to a serious short covering rally also towards the end of this week. FIs wrote more puts than calls, telling you that there is strong support at lower levels. And there was some short covering in calls as well. 19,200, 19,250 and 19,300 calls. All of them shed nearly 63 lakh shares in open interest in yesterday's trading session. We've seen some writing at the 19,450 call, telling you that there could be some bit of congestion at 19,500. That is something we'll be watching out for. But at the lower level, 19,350 will be strong support because 19,400 puts have seen a fair amount of writing as well. Also, it's a Tuesday. That means it is Fin Nifty weekly options expiry. And to that, the 19,600 call on the Fin Nifty is extremely active. At the lower level, support around 19,400.
Okay, Mangalam, thanks a lot for laying out all of those cues for us. That is important to track for this market action and the setup today. But with that, let's move on and bring you some important commentary coming in. India will see some slowdown next year, but it will still outperform the rest of Asia. That's the word coming in from Bank of America's head of global economics, Claudio Irigoyen. My colleague Nigel spoke to him and asked him how he sees top economies fare this year and where India really fits into that picture. Listen in.
Global growth less synchronized over time. So the pandemic was sort of the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict was sort of a couple of global shocks that hit most of the economies at the same time, not in the same magnitude. Obviously, Europe was much more hit by the energy shock associated with the Russia-Ukraine conflict than the US or China. But the pandemic was roughly the same type of shock for everyone. In the US, back to the US, we expect a soft landing. It's important to clarify that soft landing doesn't mean no landing. And soft landing obviously is not a recession and it's not a hard landing. Soft landing means that the economy will grow for 4, 5, maybe 6 quarters below potential, yes. But without having any quarter of negative growth. So it will be a smooth slowdown of the economy that will be enough for bringing inflation down to target roughly in 2025. Within emerging markets, you have pockets of opportunities. Yeah. This year, Mexico did very well because it's linked to the US. So the outperformance of the US led to an outperformance of Mexico. Brazil sort of did pretty well because of the outperformance of the agricultural sector. And to your point, India will be one of the outperformers this year, growing probably north of 7%. Some slowdown into next year, but still outperforming the rest of Asia and the rest of emerging markets. Vietnam will do also well, but India will be probably one of the best stories of the next 3 years.
All right, that is a very interesting conversation. But with that, we're going to get into a short break. On the other side, we have lots more news and updates coming up for you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's that time of the year again. The festive season is here and we at CNBC-TV18 are doing our best to help you enjoy a prosperous and profitable Samvat 2080. To help you do that, Prashant spoke with veteran investor Vijay Kedia on his learnings from the market in Samvat 2079, the year gone by, and also tried understanding the political risk factors really affecting market sentiment. So here's a very interesting slice of that conversation.
Before we talk about the Samvat and what lies ahead, let's actually recap what has been the biggest learning for you from the Samvat which has gone past, I mean the one behind us now.
I think there are so many learnings, Prashant, you know, but one biggest learning or observation or whatever you call it, of course, we learn by observing things. What I have understood in this market, and this I had made a quote also for this, that influence of FIIs in this market is receding. Now it is no more important issue because FIIs is selling, you know, left, right, and center. But retail investors are taking over the market. So their influence is no more there in this market. This is the biggest learning. Earlier we used to, every day we used to talk about FIIs. Their 1 rupee of selling used to have an impact of 80 rupees, for example. So that is the biggest learning, that don't be dependent and don't look what FIs are doing.
Politics एक risk लगता है आपको, मतलब कि वो near term मतलब थोड़ा मार्केट थम जाएगा, बट कोई ऐसा बड़ा रिस्क नहीं लगता आपको?
रिस्क नहीं लगता कि सपोज ऐसे जो अभी जो गवर्नमेंट है, अगर सपोज ऐसा कोई एक सिनारियो सेंटीमेंट ऐसा बनता है कि दिस गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट गोइंग टू कम, देन मार्केट विल फॉल. Then market will fall in a big way. Not because of that we want BJP or we want Congress and all. Market usually wants a stable government. जो गवर्नमेंट की हमको आदत पड़ गई ना, 5 साल 4 साल जिसने 5 साल जिसने चलाया, मार्केट लगता है कि भाई वही आदमी हमारा वापस है. मार्केट एडजस्ट टू ऑल दिस पॉलिटिकल थिंग्स वेरी इन ए वेरी यूनिक वे. हमने आई.के. गुजराल भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने थे, तभी मार्केट तेज हो गया था, जब का कोई कंटेंडर नहीं थे. जैसे देवी गौड़ा साहब भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बने थे. तो ये मार्केट अपनी अलग चाल है. इंडियन जो ट्रेंड है इकोनॉमी का, ये अलग चाल में चल रहा है. लेकिन एक बार वो डिस्टेबल होता है ना, जो प्रेजेंट चीज है, तो मार्केट उसको थोड़ा सा हिल जाता है, अनसर्टेन हो जाता है.
That's our special show, Market Masters, and you can catch the full conversation with Vijay Kedia at 7 p.m. this evening only on CNBC-TV18. With that, we're going to get into a short break now. But on the other side, we're tracking all of the cues from the commodity markets. Manisha will fill us in. Stay tuned.
It is, Pavitra, if you look at the Asian markets right now, we've seen almost everything see a bit of a decline. So crude oil prices now below $85 a barrel. It has been a constant decline. We saw prices decline 6% the previous week. Monday was fine, but by the time you saw closing and Tuesday's opening, it has been on the weaker side right now. So the Chinese demand continues to be on the weaker side. Israel is considering tactical pauses in Gaza, not a ceasefire, but enough to ensure that the humanitarian aid continues to go in. So there is no new development in the conflict there, and that premium seems to be getting off the prices. While, of course, Saudi Arabia, Russia output cuts are supportive is the reason we are looking at these prices. But from a high of $96 in the previous month to an $84 right now, we're already down by $10, $11 from the highs that we saw because of that war premium. That's exactly what you are seeing in other commodities also. Overnight, it has been profit-taking in gold and silver, in natural gas, which fell 7%, and most of the metals also declined anywhere between 0.5% to 1%.
Okay, so a little bit of a pullback that we're seeing in all of these commodities. Manisha, thanks a lot for bringing us that action. But let's now talk about some national updates as well. The first phase of Chhattisgarh Assembly polls are set to be held today, and out of the total of 90 seats, polling will be held for 20 seats in phase 1, including Bastar and Rajnandgaon. Meanwhile, voting has begun for all 40 seats in Mizoram, which faces a multi-cornered contest. So we're going to keep bringing you updates on that, but that is, that is what we have for now. With that, let's move on and talk about the air quality situation, because it remains very critical whether it's in NCR or here in Mumbai. In fact, Mumbai's air quality has worsened with the overall AQI nearly touching 150, and this is largely due to the ongoing construction activity in the city. The Bombay High Court has now imposed a ban on transportation of construction debris to and from construction sites. The High Court has directed municipal authorities and the police to ensure people burst firecrackers only between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. So that is the situation in Mumbai. Meanwhile, the air quality in the NCR region also continues to be in the hazardous category. The Delhi government has ordered schools to conduct online classes for all students except for those in the 10th and 12th, the board classes, up until the 10th of November. Environment Minister Gopal Rai also announced that the odd-even rule for private vehicles will be implemented for November 13th up until the 20th of November in Delhi. So that is an important update as well on the AQI situation, which continues to be quite severe both in Mumbai and in Delhi. We're going to wind down on that note with the news that the Asian markets have pulled back a little bit more. So the Japanese market is now down almost 300 points. The GIFT Nifty saying that the start could be a little bit soft, maybe around 25 points lower. Thanks for tuning in. We have Bazaar Morning Call up after this short break.
भाई हैप्पी दिवाली।
अरे आप यहाँ आए किस लिए?
आपने बुलाया इसलिए।
आए हैं तो काम भी बताइए।
पहले आप जरा गुनगुनाइए।
आओ गुनगुनाते हैं।
चलिए
महफिल सजाते हैं।
चलिए आइए। What has been the biggest learning for you from the somewhat which has gone past?
Influence of FIIs in this market is receding. Now it is no more important issue because FIs is selling, you know, left, right and center.
सेरा
ने मेरे को 16,000 टाइम्स का रिटर्न दिया है मेरे को।
कुछ सुनाइए जो कि which tells us about your love for this market.
मेरी जिंदगी सवारी मुझको गले लगा के बैठा दिया फलक पे मुझे खाक से उठा के।